Teaching with the Brain in Mind, Chapter 1, Meet Your Amazing Brain, presented by the Interdisciplinary team. Can you read the paragraph below? Let me give you a few minutes to look at it. If you were able to read this paragraph, you know how amazing the brain really is. There are three essential features of the brain: adaptability, integration, sophistication. Each of these are essential. The brain is like a computer. You input information, it processes it, and it relays the messages. Before we really look at the brain, we need to study its basic raw material, or its anatomy. There are various parts of the brain, and we will look at some of them a little closer. The frontal lobe of the brain actually determines personality. It contains the motor cortex, and it is most involved in actual conscious thinking. The parietal lobe gives the sensations of touch and association and enables the fine judgment of sensation. Occipital lobe is the visual area of the brain. It receives projections from the retina. And the temporal lobes. These have a large number of substructures like perception, face recognition, object recognition, and many others. The cerebellum monitors and regulates motor behavior, particularly automatic movements. It's 10% of the total brain weight. The brainstem controls autonomic functions, organizes motor movements, and coordinates with the motor cortex. One of the most interesting things about the brain is its adaptability, how it can constantly change and adapt to new situations. You ever ask yourself, can you really teach an old dog new tricks? Well, according to research, it seems that you can. Human beings have the capacity and the choice to be able to change our own brains. This is a fascinating and important fact. How can we change? Well, there are social influences on genetic constitution and expression. There are environmental triggers that can reprogram genes, and the brain can adapt to the world you live in as well as how you choose to live. Brain activity. The experiences create connections within the cortex, and your brain both adds new connections and prunes other connections that it seems to be unnecessary. There are 15 factors that can either enhance or impair neurogenesis. An example would be exercise. Exercise can actually increase neurogenesis or creating connections, while excess stress can reduce your ability to create new connections. I know, you're a teacher, not a doctor, but the reorganization of the brain is purposeful. It is driven by real-life use and issues. Therefore, every child has a capacity for change, regardless of their genetics. Now we should look at the integration, how the brain structures cooperate and compete with each other. You ever feel like sometimes you go into a classroom and this is what your students are telling you? In order for students to make connections, consistency and repetition are key. Whatever is first, whatever activities are more frequent, and whatever actions are more coherent will win the competition for network wiring and signal the brain to allocate space and resources to that set of behaviors. Sophistication. How does the brain actually learn? Well, the brain receives input. It receives input from the 5 senses, imagination, reflections. The input is processed by the thalamus and routed to the correct area. Well, what are the mechanics? Well, sensitization, habituation, conditioned responses, semantic learning, imitation, and by doing. No two children are alike. Each learns differently, has different strengths. So what is learning? Learning is not just about being able to throw the switch on to the right neurons. You also have to be able to shut down other neurons. Learning involves both excitatory and inhibitory processes. So we not only have to teach students to make connections, but also how to prune out unnecessary connections. So how do we know that learning has taken place? Sometimes you feel like you're teaching and it's just really not going anywhere. Well, we look for certain things, like a modification of existing connections, an elimination of bad connections, the growth of new connections, retention of exuberant connections, and compensatory reorganization. We want to see that there's actually a difference in what they think and how they think. So learning. Learning can only take place, only the right state activations and the appropriate chemical mix will retrieve learning. In a clear thinking, level-headed frame of mind, you learn and recall more than when you are depressed, tired, and angry. And I think we've all experienced this in our classroom when you have a student that's just really angry and they're having a hard time learning. But if we can change that environment, then learning can become both enjoyable and successful. So what does this all mean to a teacher? Well, basically, the ideas from neuroscience combined with the models from psychology and behavioral sciences can be integrated for the development of more effective teaching techniques. And we all know about the multiple intelligences, but we also have to teach to those intelligences to activate different parts of the brain and to help the students make connections. Well, I hope this helped, and bye.